The first sign wasn't smoke. It wasn't fire. It wasn't even a warning light. It was a sound. A metallic tapping, faint at first, easy to ignore. The kind of noise drivers tell themselves is probably nothing, until it isn't. Across America, from quiet suburban driveways in Ohio to dusty construction sites in Texas, thousands of truck owners heard the same sound. Some were hauling trailers. Some were merging onto highways. Some were idling at red lights. And then the tapping turned violent. Engines stalled in intersections. Power steering vanished mid-turn. Vehicles coasted to the shoulder, silent and stunned. Tow trucks became a daily sight in dealership parking lots. Service departments overflowed. Phone lines jammed. Within months, what started as a faint mechanical whisper would explode into one of the biggest warranty disasters in American automotive history. And at the center of it all was a V8. But to understand how a single engine triggered billions of dollars in fallout, we have to rewind to a moment when everything felt unstoppable. The early 2000s were good years for trucks. Gas was cheap. Construction was booming. Suburbs were expanding. And in America, the full-size pickup wasn't just transportation, it was identity. And no company understood that better than Ford Motor Company. For decades, Ford's F-Series trucks had dominated the market. Best-selling vehicle in America. Year after year, blue-collar pride on four wheels. But behind the scenes, something was changing. Competitors were closing in. General Motors had revamped its truck lineup. Toyota Motor Corporation was preparing to push harder into U.S. territory. Customers wanted more power, more refinement, more technology. Ford needed an engine that would carry them into the next decade. Stronger, smoother, more advanced, and above all, reliable. Because in the truck world, loyalty isn't earned with marketing. It's earned with miles. So engineers began developing a new generation V8. A modern design, lighter, more efficient, built to deliver power without sacrificing fuel economy. It would power America's best-selling truck, the Ford F-150, and cement Ford's dominance. When it debuted in 2004, it was praised. Industry reviews applauded its refinement. It felt futuristic compared to older iron block bruisers. Smooth throttle response, quiet at highway speed, capable of towing thousands of pounds without breaking a sweat. Dealerships couldn't keep trucks on the lot. Ford was selling hundreds of thousands per year. Then the warranty claims started trickling in. At first, they seemed isolated. A few reports of spark plugs breaking during routine maintenance. Some unusual engine noise at startup. A handful of sudden stalls. Nothing catastrophic. Not yet. Inside Ford's internal systems, however, patterns were forming. Service managers began filing technical reports at an increasing rate. The same failures. The same complaints. The same expensive repairs. Spark plugs weren't just failing. They were snapping off inside the cylinder heads. Extracting them required specialized tools. Hours of labor. Sometimes full engine teardown. What should have been a $200 maintenance job ballooned into $500, sometimes more. Customers were furious. But that was only the beginning. By 2007, a darker issue surfaced. Drivers reported sudden engine shutdowns at highway speeds. No warning. No gradual loss of power. Just silence. Imagine hauling a horse trailer at 65 miles per hour and the engine dies. Imagine merging onto an interstate in rush hour traffic and your truck stalls. For many owners, that nightmare became reality. Dealerships were overwhelmed. Some repair shops had weeks-long backlogs. Warranty costs skyrocketed. Ford Corporate began quietly allocating massive internal budgets to address the surge. Because this wasn't just inconvenience. It was liability. Internal memos reportedly warned of escalating expenses, millions turning into hundreds of millions. Customers weren't just demanding repairs. They were demanding answers. Class action lawsuits began forming. Attorneys gathered documentation. Owners compared stories online. Forums filled with videos of engines ticking ominously before catastrophic failure. The V8 that was supposed to represent modern reliability was becoming a symbol of betrayal. And yet, Ford kept selling trucks. Because halting production would mean admitting something far worse. By 2008, America was entering economic chaos. The financial crisis was unfolding. Automakers were bleeding cash. General Motors and Chrysler were teetering toward bankruptcy. Ford, remarkably, avoided a federal bailout. But margins were razor thin. They couldn't afford a full recall of their best-selling engine. So instead, service bulletins were issued. Software updates, revised spark plug procedures, quiet component redesigns. Fixes rolled out slowly, almost invisibly. But the failures continued. In some cases, engines developed severe timing chain issues. Cam phasers, critical internal components, began wearing prematurely. The now infamous death rattle on cold start became a signature sound. Customers described it as a diesel knock in a gasoline truck. For a brand built on toughness and trust, the sound was humiliating. Warranty costs climbed toward staggering levels. Analysts estimated that Ford spent billions addressing engine-related claims during those model years. Billions that could have funded new development. Billions that shareholders watched evaporate. And then came the tipping point. In 2010, investigations intensified. Media outlets began connecting the dots. Stories aired about stranded families and small business owners whose livelihoods depended on their trucks. One contractor in Arizona reported replacing his engine twice under warranty before 100,000 miles. Another owner in Michigan claimed his truck stalled in the middle of a snowy intersection, narrowly avoiding a multi-car collision. The narrative shifted from mechanical issue to public safety concern. Pressure mounted. Lawmakers began asking questions. Consumer advocacy groups demanded transparency. Ford faced a decision: fight it quietly and risk prolonged reputational damage, or acknowledge the scope publicly and absorb the financial hit. The climax didn't come in a single dramatic press conference. It came in waves. Extended warranties were offered. Coverage periods expanded. Certain repairs were reimbursed retroactively. Internal engineering teams rushed to redesign flawed components for newer model years. But the damage had already been done. Trust had been shaken. And in the hyper-competitive American truck market, trust is everything. By the time Ford phased out the troubled V8 generation, the company had paid out what industry insiders estimate to be among the largest warranty expenditures tied to a single engine family in U.S. history. Some analysts quietly labeled it the most expensive engine miscalculation Ford had ever faced. Yet here's the twist: the trucks never stopped selling. Even during the scandal, the F-Series remained America's best-selling vehicle. Brand loyalty ran that deep. For many owners, Ford wasn't just a truck. It was inheritance, tradition, identity. So people kept buying. But something had changed inside Ford. Executives began accelerating development of a new strategy. Smaller displacement, turbocharging, a radical shift away from traditional large V8 dominance. When Ford unveiled its new generation EcoBoost V6 engines, some saw innovation, others saw retreat. Was the warranty disaster the catalyst? Was the V8 scandal the moment Ford realized the old formula was too risky, too expensive, too vulnerable in a tightening regulatory and economic climate? The company never publicly connected the dots. But the timeline raises eyebrows. Today, many of those early 2000s trucks are still on the road. Some run flawlessly after repairs. Others sit abandoned in used car lots, their engines ticking faintly in the cold. Ask a longtime Ford technician about that era, and you'll get a pause before the answer. A look, a memory of overflowing service bays, of angry customers, of corporate conference calls about escalating warranty reserves. It wasn't just about broken spark plugs. It wasn't just about cam phasers. It was about reputation. Because in America, the V8 isn't just an engine configuration. It's mythology. It's NASCAR Sundays. It's cross-country road trips. It's fathers handing keys to sons. And when that symbol falters, the fallout isn't measured only in dollars. It's measured in doubt. Ford survived. They adapted. They evolved. But somewhere in corporate archives, buried in spreadsheets and internal memos, are the true numbers, the real cost, the debates that happened behind closed doors when executives realized the scope of what they were facing. How close did it come to something bigger? Would a full recall have tipped Ford into the same fate as its rivals during the recession? Did the engine indirectly shape the future of American truck design? We may never know the full story. Because corporations move forward, they rebrand, they innovate, and they rarely dwell on scars. But if you listen closely, to an early 2000s F-150 idling on a cold morning, you might still hear it. That faint metallic tap, a reminder that even legends can stumble. And sometimes, a single V8 can shake an empire.